Hi, this is Ken Albertson. I'm here to give a little rant about the war on drugs. And most of you hearing this will have your opinions about it. And you'll probably agree with me that it's mostly bullshit, the whole war on drug thing. In fact, it's caused a lot more misery than good. Um, but I'd like to offer some of my insights. Um, it's it really got going strongly with Nixon, um, and one of his top aides, Ehrlichman, admitted decades later that a big reason Nixon started this so-called war on drugs was to victimize the dark-skinned people in the cities, in American cities, and I have an idea of what was going on then. I was in my around 20, 21, 22 at that time. So, and plus I lived in Washington, D.C. I even saw Ehrlichman and Haldeman walking around the streets sometimes. I think they were going to score drugs, but I'm not sure. But that's not the point I'm trying to make here. Um, Actually, even way before Nixon, we have a man named Anslinger who was best buddies with J. Edgar Hoover. And Anslinger, probably more than any one person, criminalized marijuana. And as you probably know, marijuana, in their view, led to heroin and a downward slide into, misery and death. So these right wingers have been churning this stuff out. And then a lot later, after Nixon, you have Nancy Reagan with her Just Say No campaign. Um, but the thing about it is a lot of it revolves around the DEA, Drug Enforcement Agency, based in Washington, D.C. And they're a very well-funded organization. They don't do hardly much at all. Um, at most, they spin their wheels and just waste time and waste taxpayer money. But when you look into it a little deeper and scratch the surface, you find out that their schedule of drugs, they call it a schedule. They have like Schedule 1, which are the very worst drugs in their view, and Schedule 2, Schedule 3, and so on. Their schedules are just totally inside out, backwards, and upside down. They're just ridiculous. In fact, they don't even mention alcohol at all, which is the most heinous drug in the world. I mean, it causes the most miseries and beatings and deaths probably all the other drugs combined. So that's for starters. And then you look at the Schedule 1 drugs, and they're mostly, or a lot of them, are hallucinogenic. Now, these are drugs that these people who are making the laws and enforcing the laws aren't really acquainted with. I happen to be acquainted with them because I grew up, I was a teenager during the hippie movement. So I did acid and mescaline and psilocybin and those kind of things. And I stopped doing it a few years later and I go on with my life. But I have firsthand knowledge. These people who are making the laws, they don't. And where they're getting their information and they're basing their laws upon, and from that they're destroying hundreds of thousands of people's lives, destroying families, everything. What they're basing their knowledge on is studies by other people who probably haven't done the drugs either, but they take worst case scenario. So if you take worst case scenario, I mean, even mayonnaise is deadly if you mainline it in your veins. If someone were to ask me about what is it about alcohol, and I was to say worst case scenario, I'd say, well, it leads to degradation of all your internal organs, starting with your liver. It leads to wife beatings and shootings and cars ramming into school buses and children being killed, all that kind of stuff. But you might say, well, no, alcohol's not that bad. I have a few beers and I don't go and kill people. Yeah, so that's the point I'm trying to make is the data that the DEA is basing their laws upon is based on worst case scenario. Okay, so if they look at something like methamphetamine, they look at the absolute worst case that they could ever find and say, well, that's what it does. You do methamphetamine, this is going to happen to you every time. And same with heroin and all the other drugs. So it's a complete mess. But the saddest part is they're actually destroying people's lives. The DEA is, and they're using U.S. taxpayer money to do that. Tens of billions of dollars. Okay? They're destroying people not only in America, they're destroying lives overseas. And I've seen it firsthand. The DEA goes in there, they pay foreign officials to enforce these ridiculous laws. For example, in Indonesia, marijuana can get you 25 years in prison, just a little bit of pot. You know, these kind of things. And it takes them a long time if ever, to unload those ridiculous laws. America is starting to do it now on a state-by-state basis, but still on a federal level, marijuana is a class 1 drug, and it's highly illegal. Okay, I'm going to wrap it up now and say goodbye. And feel free to make your comments. I love to hear from people, even if you tell me I'm full of crap. I don't mind. I don't get offended. And by the way, I don't do any drugs at all. I don't do alcohol. I don't do pot. Nothing. Okay, maybe an aspirin if I have a headache. So I'm not on a personal crusade in that sort of way. I'm there. Okay, I'm going to sign off now. Goodbye.